Hey guys, Ben here, and today we have a brand new gun comparison. Today we are going to be comparing the MP5 against the AK-74u. Now obviously both these guns are SMGs within Call of Duty Cold War, and this comparison is going to go for both multiplayer and zombies, and then it's going to pick an overall winner at the end. Now there is a different set of criteria for both modes. For multiplayer, we're going to be looking at its speed, accuracy, range, and damage. And for zombies, we're going to still look at accuracy and damage, but instead of speed and range, we're going to look at ammo and its ability to kill bosses. Now, before we get started with this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new, it helps me out a lot. And leave a like on this video if you enjoy content like this so that I can continue to put it out for you guys. Feel free to comment your thoughts on this down below. I feel like this one is going to be quite controversial since both guns seem to be pretty liked by the community. And join my Discord, link down in the description. I announce every time I'm streaming, every time I upload, and you can just come chat with me down there. But with that out of the way, let's get right on into this. Alright, so we're going to start off in multiplayer for this gun comparison. Now both these guns are obviously SMGs, meaning that they excel in close range combat, and they play pretty well into the current Cold War meta. Now let it be known I used both of these guns without any attachments, just to base the gun strictly on the gun itself, without any attachments, just for anybody who might be picking it up for the first time. Now the stats for both these guns are on screen, and according to these numbers from the game, the AK-74u has more firepower, while the MP5 wins speed and accuracy. The ammo advantage is given to the AK-74u despite the guns having the same amount of ammo, which I mean clearly just means that it has a slower fire rate and will go through that ammo in less time. Alright, so starting off the multiplayer section is going to be accuracy, and the game gives the advantage to the MP5. And after using both of these guns, I would have to agree with that. The main reason here is recoil, which is notoriously bad for SMGs, so it's kind of the main part of accuracy for them. And while both guns had similar vertical recoil, I felt the AK-74u had much worse horizontal recoil, and if you don't know what that means, it means it was spraying like across the screen, not necessarily up and down. So for SMGs especially, recoil is the main part of their accuracy, and so if one has the edge like the MP5 has here, it's going to be tough to not give this category to it. Alright, so moving on into our second of four categories, we're going to be moving into the damage, and the game is going to give this advantage to the AK-74u, and after using both of these guns, I'm going to have to agree yet again. The AK-74u definitely seemed to be the stronger weapon and more damaging, but it's not by that wide of a margin. The advantage when it comes to fire rate, unsurprisingly, is going to go to the MP5, but the actual power of the gun is going to go to the AK-74u. You can simply kill somebody with less shots, hence the ammo advantage going to the AK-74u despite them having the same amount of ammo. Alright, so moving into our third of four categories, this is going to be the most complicated one, and this is speed. Now there are four main factors that I use to determine who wins speed, and that's going to be fire rate, ADS time, reload time, and sprint to fire time. Now for the fire rate, we have already covered that the clear winner is going to be the MP5, and honestly it has one of the fastest fire rates in the entire game. For ADS time, which in my opinion is one of the biggest mechanical factors in the entire game, I'm going to give the advantage to the MP5. Reload time is close again, but I'm going to go to the AK-74u actually. The MP5 has this weird cocking motion, which normally only happens when the magazine is empty for other guns, but for whatever reason for the MP5 it happens regardless, and it makes the reload time just a little bit longer. And for the final main one, that's sprint to fire time, and honestly these were pretty much the same, but I would give a small, nearly unnoticeable margin to the MP5, and overall the MP5 is going to win this category. Alright, so moving on into our fourth and final category for multiplayer, this is going to be range, and this one is the biggest difference of all the categories. The AK-74u wins pretty easily, and really not because it's a great ranged weapon, more just because the MP5 is basically unusable past short range. Now in the close range, both these guns are basically elite options. I had a lot of success using both of them in the close range, but once you get to mid to long range with the MP5, just forget it. If they have any valid weapon, they're going to kill it. Alright, so now into the main points, which are our last little section before we get into the grades themselves. And well, I just take these like main points while I'm playing with the guns, and they're just quick little notes. There's only 3 of them for each gun. So for the first one for the MP5 is going to be horrible distance / range. The second one is going to be pretty bad recoil, mainly vertical. And number 3 is going to be good short range. And then for the AK-74u, it is going to be good distance range for an SMG, not bad vertical recoil, mostly horizontal, and then good short range. Alright, so now on into the actual grades. Both of these guns ended up being better tier weapons, and I'm going to give the MP5 a final grade of a B. Now, this grade is powered by the great speed and fire rate mixed with the ability to shred from close range, and the recoil that's not really that bad. It's overall close range a really strong weapon, but this grade is brought down by its inability to be used anywhere longer than close range, and just, I mean, that just puts you at too much of a disadvantage in too many gunfights. You basically need to run Lawbreaker to have an actual primary, which means you can't have more perks or 2 tomahawks, which is what I run, even though I think I'm weird and I just like tomahawking. But it just puts you at a disadvantage. It takes an option away from you because you basically need to run an AR or something else. Now for the AK-74u, this is going to come in with a final grade of an A-, winning the multiplayer section of this video. Now this grade is powered by its high damage output, especially for an SMG, and very impressive range, again, especially for an SMG. Now this grade is brought down by the hefty amount of horizontal recoil and not so impressive speed in those mechanical factors we talked about earlier. Both of these guns, very good guns. I wouldn't blame anybody for using either of them, but overall the AK-74u is going to win this category. Alright, so moving on to the zombies portion of this video, it should be pretty basic knowledge that SMGs are really never an ideal option in the game mode, and as for multiplayer, I used both these guns without any attachments just to get the true feel for the gun itself, and these guns are being compared on their abilities to get you to the earlier rounds, like up to about round 30. Alright, so diving into our first category in zombies, this is going to be ammo. And ammo is one of the most important things in zombies. For if you're just blowing through your ammo in the later rounds, the gun's going to be absolutely useless. And as for the literal numbers, the MP5 has more reserve ammo for both variants, and it has a larger magazine once you pack a punch it. But as we said in multiplayer, it does have a faster fire rate, and it seems to do less damage per shot. So I actually found that it had a harder time in this category than the AK-74u. So I'm going to give the advantage to the AK. Alright, so moving on into the second category, and this is the ability to kill bosses. Neither of these guns are very good, and I would tend to lean towards the AK, although it's really just the lesser of two evils. The more damage per shot and less recoil allows for more bullets to actually be landing, and those bullets that are landing are doing more damage. So against disciples, I guess it's not that bad. Anything that has more health, like a Panzer or Megaton, I would honestly just get a different gun. There's a free wonder weapon on every map, and you could just buy the Gallo or Hauer off the wall if you really need to. But I would definitely not be using either of these guns against any stronger bosses. Alright, so moving on into the damage section of this video, this is something that we've kind of been over already a few times, I think, and the winner here is going to be the AK. It just does more damage per shot, and if it does, it's kind of hard to give it to the MP5, even though it does have a faster fire rate. I think overall the damage per shot difference is good enough for the AK. As you can see the numbers on screen here, it clearly does more damage for every variant. Note that this is for only the red variant of the gun, so I didn't upgrade it using salvage at all for either gun, since this is only up to round 30 and most people won't really be upgrading it to purple or gold at that point. Alright, so moving into our final category, which is accuracy. I'm kind of including range into this category, since I just don't think range is important enough to be its own category, but obviously the AK would win that part of it. For the accuracy overall, the horizontal recoil I found isn't really as bad. It's more vertical recoil, where I think the guns are very similar. So I'm actually going to end up giving this section to the AK-74u, because honestly, when you have a huge horde of zombies, if it's spraying across them, it's really not that much of a problem. Overall recoil much less important than it is in multiplayer as well, but I'm going to give the accuracy advantage just by a small margin to the AK. Alright, so before we get into the grades, as for multiplayer, I took a few main points on each gun. So for the MP5, number 1 with ammo is a big issue. Number 2 is it's not great against bosses, and number 3 is it's an overall weak weapon. And I think this really does a great job of summing the gun up as a whole. Overall, it's just not a great weapon, really. And for the AK, number 1 is going to be ammo is kind of an issue. Again, not as much as it is with the MP5. 2, the damage fall off is bad. It has better range than the MP5, but it wasn't as good of a ranged weapon as it was in multiplayer. And number 3 is it's more of a mid-tier weapon. Alright, so now moving on into the grades for zombies, the MP5 is going to start off with a C-. And honestly, this one feels kind of generous, which is kind of difficult since it's a C-. It doesn't really have many strong points, but the speed and mobility does make training pretty easy. And then the drawbacks, I mean, there's a lot of them as I've listed earlier. The ammo being a problem, accuracy not being great, critical kills aren't easy to get, and just a general inability to really kill any type of bosses. The AK-74u is going to get a C+, better, but really still not a good weapon. The increased damage and slower fire rate really work together to make it a better weapon, and overall the damage fall off and the recoil hold it back from getting anything better, and just the fact that it's an SMG, never really a gun you want to be using. Alright, so now moving into our final grades for the video, and after winning both multiplayer and zombies, it's pretty obvious the AK-74u is going to win this gun comparison. The overall grade I'm going to give the AK is going to be a B+, and for the MP5 it's going to be a C+, putting the AK-74u an entire grade ahead. Really just the combination of damage and slower fire rate ends up working really well for the AK-74u in zombies. And when it has an increased range in multiplayer, it really becomes, to me, just a much better gun. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're still watching at this point, make sure you guys subscribe with notifications on for more content like this if you enjoyed the video. Comment your thoughts on these guns down below, as I am just one person, and I totally expect some other opinions out there, and I would love to hear them from you guys, honestly. And if you guys want to join my Discord, I always update when I'm streaming. When I upload, and again, you could just chat with me in there. I'm on it pretty often, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.